Menhaz Zaman. In 2016, 20-year-old Menhaz Zaman from Markham, Ontario, told his parents Monaruz and Mamataz that he'd been accepted into York University's mechanical engineering program, and his family celebrated. His parents, devout Muslims who had immigrated from Bangladesh, were thrilled that their son would become an engineer. But Menhaz was lying. He'd never been accepted into York at all. He spent the next 3 years maintaining the elaborate deception, leaving home every morning as if heading to class, but actually spending his days at a shopping mall near campus from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., then visiting a community gym, timing everything to match a fake class schedule. At night, he disappeared into Perfect World, a massive multiplayer online game where he was known simply as Menhaz, and played an elf priest character for hours on end with the same group of players. His parents had no idea their son had never set foot in a single engineering class. By July 2019, Menhaz had told his family he was graduating on July 28th. As the fake graduation date approached, Menhaz's behavior on the gaming server turned darker. He started using racial slurs, deriding his Muslim background and talking about suicide and killing his family, though most players dismissed it as dark internet humor. On July 25th, just 3 days before the murders, he posted in a group chat, "My life is going to end. Somebody snitched on me, so I have to do it as soon as possible." Nobody understood what he meant. On Saturday evening, July 27th, around 10 p.m., Menhaz messaged a community member named John on Discord and wrote, "I just slaughtered my entire family and will most likely spend the rest of my life in jail if I manage to survive." Then he started sending pictures, graphic photographs of 2 women on the ground covered in blood, then a photo of his family alive cutting a birthday cake to prove these were his relatives. He announced, "I'm waiting for my dad to come home to kill him. He'll be home in about an hour." Over the next 9 hours, Menhaz had killed his 50-year-old mother Momotaz, his 70-year-old grandmother Firoza Begum, who was visiting from Bangladesh, his 21-year-old sister Malaysa, and finally his 59-year-old father Monaruz, hitting each of them in the head with a crowbar and then cutting their throats with a knife. The gaming community realized the murders were happening in real time and desperately tried to find Menhaz's address. About 10 community members worked for 4 to 5 hours, tracing IP addresses and PayPal payments. A member named Bianca from the Greater Toronto area finally traced previous PayPal payments from Menhaz's account to a home address and cross-referenced it with IP location data from his Skype account. She called police between 3 and 5 a.m. At 3 p.m. on Sunday, July 28th, police arrived at the Zaman residence on Castlemore Avenue, found 4 bodies inside, and arrested Menhaz at the scene. His final message to John was simple: "Police are here, goodbye." In September 2020, Menhaz pleaded guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 40 years. Daniel Petric. In early 2006, 16-year-old Daniel Petric from Brighton Township, Ohio, was a cheerful, outgoing teenager who studied the Bible with his father Mark, a Pentecostal minister, and earned average grades in high school. Then a skiing accident changed everything. Daniel injured himself badly enough that the wound became infected with Staphylococcus bacteria, which spread to his spine and left him housebound for an entire year while he recovered. During those 12 months trapped inside with nothing to do, a friend introduced him to Halo, and Daniel fell into the game like a man falling into quicksand. At first, Daniel played for 7 to 8 hours a day, but the hours kept climbing. When his dad Mark started pressuring him to stop gaming so much or leave home, Daniel moved in with his friend for a weekend and played Halo for 18 hours straight with almost no breaks. By the time Halo 3 launched in September 2007, Daniel was completely hooked, and he secretly bought his own copy. When Mark discovered the game, he confiscated it and locked it in a safe that also contained his 9mm Taurus handgun, telling Daniel he couldn't have it back. Daniel spent the next week searching for the key to the safe, and on October 20th, 2007, around 7 p.m., He found it in his father's desk and took out both the game and the gun from the safe. Then he walked up behind his parents as they sat on the couch and said, "Would you close your eyes? I have a surprise for you." Mark and his mother Susan closed their eyes, and Daniel shot them both in the head. Susan collapsed with bullets in her head, arms and chest, dying within seconds, while Mark slumped forward, blood pouring from his skull but still breathing. Daniel had timed the shooting knowing his sister Heidi and her husband were scheduled to arrive at 9 p.m., which would give him time to stage the scene properly. But they arrived 2 hours early, around 7 p.m., and heard groaning coming from inside. When they tried to enter, Daniel attempted to stop them, but they forced the door open anyway and found Mark barely alive with blood pouring from his head and Susan dead on the couch. Daniel grabbed the Halo 3 game and ran to the family minivan. Police chased his vehicle and caught him minutes later with the game still in his possession. At trial in December 2008, his attorney argued that thousands of hours watching characters respawn in Halo had broken Daniel's understanding of reality. The judge agreed, stating, "I firmly believe that Daniel Petric had no idea at the time he hatched this plot that if he killed his parents, they would be dead forever." Daniel received life in prison with parole eligibility after 23 years, and Mark, who survived the headshot, immediately forgave his son, Zain Ali. In early 2022, 14-year-old Zain Ali from the Kana area of Lahore, Pakistan, was spending most of his time locked in his room playing PUBG, a battle royale game where players fight to be the last one standing. His mother, 45-year-old Nahid Mubarak, who worked as a lady health worker, kept scolding him for wasting his time on games instead of focusing on his studies, but Zain ignored her and kept playing. His family noticed that whenever he failed to complete a mission or achieve a target in the game, he became aggressive, his frustration boiling over into anger. Nahid kept a licensed pistol in a cupboard at home for protection after their house had been burglarized years earlier. On the night of January 18, 2022, around 2 a.m., Zain had been playing PUBG for hours when he missed a target in the game, and the frustration hit him hard. His mother had just scolded him again about his gaming and his neglect of schoolwork, and something in Zain snapped. He retrieved his mother's pistol from the cupboard, walked to her bedroom where she was asleep on the bed with his two younger sisters, 15-year-old Manur Fatima and 10-year-old Janat, and opened fire. The gunshots tore through Nahid, Manur, and Janat as they slept, blood soaking the bed and spreading across the floor. When Zain's 20-year-old elder brother, Taimur Sultan, heard the gunshots from another room where he'd been working on a laptop, he rushed toward the door to see what was happening, and Zain shot him as soon as he appeared in the doorway, and Taimur collapsed at the threshold with blood pouring from his body. After killing all 4 family members, Zain threw the pistol into a nearby drain to get rid of the evidence. He then went back to his room on the upper floor of the house, lay down and pretended to be asleep. The next morning, he raised an alarm as if he'd just discovered the bodies, and neighbors called the police. When investigators arrived, they questioned Zain, who claimed, "I was on the upper story of the house and did not know how the deaths occurred." But police noticed his confused body language and found it hard to believe he'd slept through 4 gunshots in his own home. Over the next 9 days, investigators found a blood trail leading from the crime scene to Zain's room on the upper floor and discovered bloodstains on his clothes. On January 28, 2022, police formally arrested Zain Ali. During interrogation, Zain confessed to the murders and told police, "Repeated defeats in the game increased my stress, and I fired shots thinking that everyone will come back to life like in the game." On September 24, 2025, Additional Sessions Judge Riaz Ahmed convicted Zain and sentenced him to 4 concurrent life sentences of 25 years each, a total of 100 years imprisonment, along with a fine of 4 million Pakistani rupees. The judge stated that due to Zain's age at the time of the crime, he was spared the death penalty, but would serve 25 years before parole eligibility. Joseph Voit. In late 2024, 23-year-old Joseph Voit from Bartow, Florida wasn't working and spent most of his time playing video games. His parents, Marvin and Susan, were getting more and more frustrated watching their son do nothing all day. His dad, Marvin, who was 63, kept telling Joseph to stop gaming and get a job. Joseph had been in trouble with the law before. He'd been arrested for firing a gun in a neighborhood and for battery, and he'd just gotten out of jail a week earlier on December 1st. On December 7th, 2024, around 11:20 p.m., Joseph and his father got into another fight about gaming and getting a job. Joseph grabbed a gun, went outside where his dad was standing in the driveway, and shot him multiple times. Marvin died right there on the pavement. Then Joseph went inside and shot his mother Susan once in the head while she sat on the couch. Even though she was shot in the head, Susan stayed conscious and managed to call 911, telling them her son had shot both her and her husband. Joseph drove away while police rushed to the house. Police sent out an alert for his car to all law enforcement in the area. Around 2 a.m., about 4 hours later, Orlando police spotted his car on International Drive in Orlando, more than 60 miles away. They stopped him and arrested him. When police questioned Joseph, he admitted right away that he shot his parents because his dad was upset about him spending the majority of his time playing video games and riding his ass about making something of himself and getting a job. Joseph was originally charged with first-degree murder, but in April 2025, he took a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for killing his father and attempted murder for shooting his mother. On April 15, 2025, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison. His mother Susan survived the gunshot to her head. Sethi. In early 2025, 21-year-old college student Sethi was living with his parents and sister in Hinjali, in Odisha's Ganjam district, and spending most of his nights glued to his phone playing online games. His parents were worried and frustrated. They saw him skipping college, staying up late, and putting more and more time into gaming instead of studying. They kept telling him to stop staying up all night, to cut back on the games, and to focus on his future. For months, the same fight played over and over, parents telling him to change and him refusing. On the night of March 2nd, 2025, that tension finally boiled over. At about 3 a.m. on March 3rd, while his 65-year-old father and 62-year-old mother were asleep in their bedroom, Sethi went in holding stones. They were lying in bed, unaware that anything was wrong. He walked up to them and began hitting their heads with the stones again and again. The blows crushed their skulls and left blood all over the bed and walls. In another room, his 25-year-old sister was asleep as well. After killing his parents, he went to her room and attacked her the same way, striking her in the head until she died. The next morning, neighbors and relatives noticed something was off. Nobody from the family came out of the house, and calls went unanswered. When they went inside to check, they found all 3 bodies with severe head injuries and called the police. When officers arrived, they saw there was no sign of a break-in. They found the blood-stained stones used as weapons still inside and quickly realized this was not an outside robbery or gang attack. Police questioned Sethi, who was in the house and uninjured. According to what officers later told the media, he admitted he had killed his parents and sister after repeated arguments about his online gaming and their constant opposition to it.